The linen was scratchy against his skin, and the air inside the small mud brick home was thick with the scent of old straw and sweat. KB pressed his forehead to the cool floor and let the silence bury his cries. The amulet was gone. It was the last thing his mother gave him before the fever took her. A small, carved scarab strung on twine, the edges worn smooth from years of his anxious fingers rubbing over it. A talisman she swore would protect him. Now, it was missing, and the weight of its absence made his chest ache more than hunger ever could. He'd searched every inch of the house, beneath the broken bed frame, inside the straw mat, even along the packed dirt walls. Nothing. He didn't have much. Just his labor at the river docks, a roof that leaked during the floods, and a best friend named Meanies who talked too much and made the hard days feel softer. But that amulet, it was different. It was memory. Safety. A whisper of her voice when the nights got long. And now it was just gone. Outside, the sky was bleeding orange into the Nile. The air buzzed with mosquitoes, and the distant calls of traders drifted lazily over the reeds. KB stood, wiping his face with a rough sleeve, and walked out into the fading light. He didn't see the jackal at first. It stood far off, by the tall papyrus reeds, half in shadow. Watching. Its eyes gleamed unnaturally in the dusk, too still. Too knowing. KB blinked, and it was gone. He shivered, though the air was warm. KB wasn't like the other boys in the village. He had no father, no siblings, and no land. He lived on the edge of the workers' quarter, near the low fields where the river crept in during the flood season. Every morning before the sun climbed high, he'd haul baskets for copper coins, his back bent, his hands raw. Most days, he ate flatbread dipped in sour beans. On feast days, maybe dates or fish if he was lucky. But his heart stayed hollow. Like his stomach wasn't the only thing that hungered. When Meanies wasn't helping his father with pottery, he'd sneak away to sit with KB under the old sycamore tree. They'd talk about stupid things, how far they could swim across the river, which temple priest had the most ridiculous beard, or if the pharaoh ever had to eat vegetables like the rest of them. Meanies was louder than KB, quicker with a smile, but softer too. He noticed things. Like how KB flinched at sudden sounds, or how he never talked about his mother anymore. "She's not really gone," Meanies said once, picking at the bark with a stick. "The priests say souls get weighed. Maybe she's with Osiris now." KB didn't answer. He didn't know if he believed in souls anymore. That night, he dreamed of sand. Endless, choking sand. He stood alone in the desert, wind screaming through his ears. The sun was gone. Only a pale moon hung overhead, casting silver light on something moving far ahead, something tall, wrapped in linen, its face hidden. The figure stopped, turned toward him slowly, and raised one hand. In it dangled the scarab amulet. KB tried to scream, but the sand filled his mouth. He woke with a gasp, chest heaving, drenched in sweat. The dream clung to him like wet linen. And his ears still rang, not with wind, but with whispers. A hissing, ancient sound. By the third day, he knew something was wrong. The jackal returned each dusk, standing a little closer. Always watching. It never moved like a normal animal. It didn't blink. It didn't twitch. It simply waited. "Maybe it's Anubis," Meanies joked, nudging him as they walked home. "Come to weigh your heart." KB didn't laugh. That night, they stayed by the river longer than usual. The water glowed with reflected stars, and frogs croaked lazily nearby. The moon was a thin sickle, barely lighting the path. "You ever feel like someone's following you?" KB asked quietly. Meanies looked at him. "No. But you've been acting strange. Since the amulet." KB hesitated. Then he told him about the dream, the figure, the whispers, the jackal. Meanies listened in silence, for once not interrupting. When KB finished, he just said, "Maybe it's a curse." KB flinched. "Don't joke." "I'm not." Maybe it wasn't just a trinket." They sat in silence, the warm night pressing in around them. The reeds rustled softly. Then Meanie stood. "Come on. Let's go to the temple tomorrow. We'll ask the priest. Maybe they know something." KB nodded, though fear coiled tight in his chest. He didn't want to go near the temples. Not since his mother's funeral. They never made it to the temple. The next morning, Meanies didn't show up. Not at the river. Not at the sycamore tree. Not even when KB knocked at the pottery house and asked his father. "I thought he was with you," the man said, frowning. "He left early." Panic bloomed. KB searched everywhere. The path by the reeds. The docks. The food stalls. Even the edge of the desert road. Nothing. That night, KB didn't sleep. The jackal came again. But this time, it wasn't alone. Behind it stood the figure from his dream. Wrapped in linen. Silent. Holding the amulet. And this time, it pointed at him. KB had always believed his family was ordinary. Poor, yes. Forgotten, certainly. But not cursed. That illusion died the night Meanies vanished. He hadn't returned home. Not after a full day. Not after 2. His father, too proud to show fear, lit candles and muttered prayers to Osiris. But even the old man's voice cracked when he whispered he wouldn't just leave. KB wandered the village in a daze. Every place they used to go now felt colder. Quieter. And the jackal, it never left. It stood farther now, hiding behind trees, behind corners, behind other people. But always there. Watching. Then, on the third night, something strange happened. KB's door opened on its own. No wind. No footsteps. Just a slow, silent creak, like it was inviting something in or out. In the doorway stood an old woman. Bent-backed. Cloaked in tattered linen. Her face hidden beneath a veil made from woven reeds. She smelled of herbs and smoke. KB froze. "Who are you?" "I'm someone your mother feared," she said. Her voice was soft but layered, like it came from a cave. "And someone you now need." Before he could speak again, she crossed the threshold and reached into her satchel. She pulled out something small, an iridescent shell, shaped like a spiral, smooth and warm even from across the room. "A kabibiing ala," she said. "A memory shell." KB stared. "It was hidden from you." As was the truth. She sat down without permission and placed the shell in his hand. The moment his skin touched it, he gasped. A rush of warmth surged through him, then whispers, voices not his own. A woman crying. A lullaby. A man's voice, stern and deep. Sand blowing in the wind. Screaming. Then silence. He dropped it, shaking. "What was that?" "Your mother's past," the woman said. "And your father's truth." KB blinked. "My father's dead." The woman turned toward him, veil shifting. "That's what she told you." They sat in the flickering light of the oil lamp as the woman, an albularia, a healer of old ways, spoke of curses older than pyramids. "Your bloodline carries a shadow," she said. "Your mother once loved someone not of this world. A being cursed long ago for defying the underworld. His children would carry both light and rot. You are one of them." KB stared at the shell on the floor. "You mean, my father wasn't human?" She shook her head. Not fully. He walked among us, yes. But beneath the skin, he was something else. What was he? A tagapangalaga ng liwanag, a guardian of memory and death. They were hunted by those who feed on forgetting. On fear. On flesh. The word sat between them for a long moment. Aswang. They've returned, she whispered. And they're looking for you. KB's chest tightened. Meanies, she nodded grimly. Taken. Or worse. They sense your blood. Your gift. Your fear. They will keep taking until you choose. Choose what? To stand. Or vanish. She held out the shell again. The kabibi is more than a memory. It will show you what was hidden. But it will also make you visible to them. He stared at it. Then why would I use it? She leaned forward, her voice barely audible. Because you're already marked. That night, KB stood beneath the sycamore tree, the shell heavy in his palm. He didn't know what to believe. His mother, a liar? His father, a creature? And him, cursed? The wind rustled the leaves above. A bird squawked in the distance. And then, a whisper. Come. He turned. No one. Remember. It was inside his head. The shell pulsed. He held it tighter. A warm current flowed through his fingers. Then the world shifted. Suddenly, he stood in a memory not his own. The village was younger. The houses fewer. His mother, barely older than he was now, stood beside a tall man wrapped in dark linen robes. His face was kind, but his eyes glowed faintly in the dusk. They stood by the river. Holding hands. Promise me, she said. If they come for him, you'll hide him. I'll give him the shell, the man said. And he'll know what he is when the time comes. Lightning flashed across the sky. The water churned unnaturally. From the far shore came the screech of something foul, wings flapping, claws tearing the earth. The man turned toward the sound. His skin began to peel away like dust, revealing light beneath. Then, everything went black. KB staggered back into his body, gasping. His legs gave out beneath him. He remembered now. A flash of a man visiting in the night. Whispering to his mother. Leaving something beneath the floorboards. He ran home. He tore up the mats. Ripped at the floor. Dug with his bare hands until his fingers bled. And there it was. A second kabibi. This one cracked, darker, humming with a low, angry thrum. The moment he touched it, the air turned cold. And outside, the jackal howled. Except this time, it wasn't alone. He stepped to the door, heart pounding. Across the path, in the moonlight, stood three shapes. Human but wrong. Too thin. Too tall. Eyes glowing red. Mouth slowly stretching, revealing long, needle-like teeth. Aswang. One of them opened its mouth, and Meanies' voice came out. KB, it moaned. Why did you leave me? His blood ran cold. That's not you. The thing smiled. The shell in his hand began to glow. The memory surged, his father's light. The words he spoke, you must choose, hide, or shine. The aswang lunged. And KB did the one thing he thought he never would. He stepped into the light. KB didn't sleep after the aswang appeared. He sat on the dirt floor of his home, staring at the cracked shell, the second kabibi. It pulsed faintly, like a heart beating beneath stone. In his other hand, the first shell, the kabibi ng aliala, was silent now. Cold. As if it had shown him all it could for now. Outside, dawn crept over the village like a slow tide. But the light didn't comfort him. Not anymore. His best friend's voice, used like bait. The aswang mimicking Meanies' pain, his fear, his confusion. It wasn't just a monster, it knew him. It knew how to hurt him. And maybe, it wasn't entirely lying. By midday, KB was back under the sycamore tree, his eyes burning from exhaustion. He hadn't eaten. He didn't feel hungry. The weight of the shells in his pouch was enough to make him feel sick. He ran his fingers through the dry earth, tracing shapes, just to feel something. Anything. He didn't hear the woman approach until she sat beside him. "You're fading," the albularia said. He didn't answer. "You held the second shell," she added. "You saw more." KB nodded. "What did it show you?" "It didn't show me anything," he murmured. "It spoke." The aswang came. In Meanies' voice. The healer was silent for a long moment. "Memory and shadow," she said finally. "They often speak through what we love. That is how they wound you before they feed." KB clenched his jaw. "Is he still alive?" The woman didn't reply. Later, wandering near the edge of the riverbank, KB paused by the old irrigation canal. A soft, gurgling sound caught his attention. There, knee-deep in the muddy water, was a child. Or what looked like one. Its back was turned. Hair wet, hanging in long, stringy clumps. It scooped at the mud with tiny hands, then stopped. Very slowly, it turned its head toward him. The eyes were too wide. Too round. Its face pale and flat, the mouth stretched ear to ear in a twitching smile. "Are you looking for your friend?" it asked sweetly, voice bubbling like the water. KB stepped back. The ground squelched under his foot. The child tilted its head. The smile didn't move. He went down. Way down. So deep. KB's breath caught. The creature took a step closer. He grabbed the first shell, clutching it tight, and whispered a prayer he wasn't sure he believed in anymore. The child let out a giggle that gurgled into a rasp. Then vanished. No splash. No ripple. Just gone. That night, KB curled in the corner of his home, shaking. This wasn't a war. It wasn't a battle. It was slow drowning, being picked apart by whispers, by shadows, by guilt. Was this what his mother felt, all those nights she stared at the fire in silence? Was this why she lied? She knew what his father was. She knew what KB might become. He remembered her lullabies. Her fingers brushing his hair. Her last words before she died, "Stay in the light." What light? There was none left. Sometime past midnight, he heard footsteps. He grabbed the first shell and crept outside. No one. Just the hush of reeds and wind. But then, a flicker. Movement. Down the path toward the broken shrine. He followed, heart pounding. The shrine was ancient. Abandoned. Half sunk into the earth. Old offerings crumbled at its base. The doorway, once painted in gold and blue, now faded to dust. Inside, the air smelled of old incense and mold. KB stepped cautiously in. His eyes adjusted slowly. Then he saw it. A figure sitting in the shadows, tall, motionless, skin like polished stone. Its face was jackal-headed. Anubis. A statue. Just a statue. But something shimmered behind it. A doorway? A crack in the wall? He stepped closer. Then the statue's head turned. Only slightly. But enough. KB gasped, stumbled backward. His foot knocked over a clay bowl, which shattered loudly. Silence. Then a voice from the shadows, deep and slow, "The dead remember." Do you? The second shell in his pouch grew warm. He turned and ran. By morning, he felt like his bones were vibrating. He hadn't slept. He barely remembered how to breathe. Everything was noises, memories, whispers, half-seen things in the corners of his vision. He stumbled to the albularia's hut, nearly collapsing at the door. She helped him inside, gave him a drink of something bitter. "You're unraveling," she said gently. "I can't do this," KB whispered. "I'm not like him." "You're more than him," she replied. "I'm not brave. I'm not strong. I just want him back. I just want to sleep without dreaming of teeth and sand and shadows." "You think that's weakness?" He looked away. She leaned closer. "You are still here. That is strength." He clenched the cracked shell in his fist. "This thing, it's changing me." "Yes," she said. "It awakens what you are." "I don't want to be like him." "Then be better." That evening, as the sky burned orange once more, KB stood alone at the river's edge. He stared into the water. His reflection wavered. What was he now? A boy holding the weight of forgotten magic? A son of something buried? A brother to shadows? He didn't know. But something inside him shifted just slightly. Like the earth before a quake. A quiet promise. Then, from the reeds, a sound. Sloshing footsteps. He turned. 2 figures emerged. Not aswang. Not spirits. Priests. Clad in dark linen. Masks covering their faces. Each carried a staff adorned with bronze and dried herbs. The taller one pointed at him. "You carry what does not belong to you," he said. KB stepped back. "What do you mean?" "The memory shell. It is sacred. Forbidden." KB gripped the pouch tightly. "The balance is tipping," the second priest said. "The darkness grows stronger. That shell is calling to them. It will bring ruin." "I didn't choose this," KB shouted. The taller priest raised his staff. "Then choose now. Give it to us." KB looked at the river. The sky. His hands. And slowly shook his head. "No," the priest stepped forward. And from behind him, something else stirred. The shadows lengthened. The wind died. And something ancient rose. KB had always thought the world would end in fire. Instead, it was silence that came first. The birds stopped singing. The dogs stopped barking. The wind refused to blow. Even the river, which had always babbled like a fussy old man, now whispered nothing at all. The quiet crept into bones, into breath. It made the village feel abandoned, even when people still moved through it. Their eyes didn't meet his anymore. Some avoided him entirely. Others whispered as he passed. And KB understood why. They had seen the priests. They had seen what followed him, shadows clinging too tightly, strange lights at night, a boy who spoke to the wind and carried shells that glowed like tiny stars. The albularia kept her distance now. "You must begin your own rites," she told him. "This next part, even I cannot walk with you." He sat at the edge of the dry canal that night, knees drawn to his chest, and stared at the horizon. Nothing moved, but everything waited. He hadn't seen Meanies again, not his face, not even a false version. That silence scared him more than the mimicry. What did it mean? Was Meanies gone? Was there anything left to save? The shell in his hand offered no answers. And the second one, the cracked kabibi, now throbbed faintly, like it was connected to something beneath the earth. Something waking up. He wanted to cry. He wanted to scream. He wanted someone, anyone, to tell him he was still just a boy. But no one came. The dreams grew darker. He saw cities swallowed by sand, statues crumbling as screams echoed from below. In one dream, he stood in a temple with no ceiling, staring up at stars that bled red. In another, he walked endlessly through an underground tunnel, following a flickering torch held by someone he couldn't quite see. And always, always, at the end of the path, a mirror. In it, his face. But not his face. Older. Hardened. Eyes glowing with the same terrible light the aswang wore. And then the reflection would smile. And say, "You are what they feared." The next morning, he returned to the old shrine. The statue of Anubis still stood, still watching. But now, behind it, a door had opened. No one else could see it, not the villagers, not the healer. But to him, it pulsed like a wound in the world. A sliver of darkness waiting to be crossed. He didn't go in. Not yet. Something told him it would be a one-way journey. That afternoon, someone called his name. He turned, and there stood Meanies. Whole. Alive. Dusty from travel but unmistakably him. KB stumbled forward, mouth dry. Meanies? His friend grinned. Who else? They hugged. Or rather, KB did. Meanies stood stiffly, smiling too wide. KB pulled back slowly. Meanies looked the same. Too much the same. What happened to you? KB asked, trying to keep his voice steady. I got lost, Meanies said. But I'm back now. Just like I promised. The shells in KB's pouch stirred. Something cold gripped his spine. You remember the night we ran from the aswang? He asked suddenly. When you fell near the reeds. What did you say to me? Meanies' eyes narrowed. You were crying. I told you to stop. You said your mother. No, KB whispered. Meanies blinked. What? You didn't say anything. You were unconscious. And just like that, the smile faded. The face shifted. Too fast to see clearly, but enough to break the illusion. The thing let out a quiet sigh. You almost believed, it said, not angrily, but almost wistfully. KB stepped back, hand gripping the first shell. I still do, he whispered. Just not in you. That night, the moon refused to rise. Darkness pressed in from all sides, thicker than cloud or shadow. And in the center of the village square, something new appeared, a circle of stones, burned black around the edges. No one claimed responsibility. No one dared approach. But KB knew what it was. A boundary. A gate. Or a warning. He could feel the earth shift beneath it. The enemy was preparing. He heard the whispers again, this time from the very soil beneath his feet. Ancient names. Forgotten rituals. And always, the same question echoing in his bones, are you ready? He wasn't. How could he be? Every time he looked in the mirror now, he saw flickers of light in his pupils. Every time he spoke, the wind seemed to pause and listen. And when he touched the cracked shell, he could feel things miles away, creatures stirring in caves, wings rustling in the dark, something old and hungry waking in the desert. He wasn't ready. But neither were they. And maybe that would be enough. The albularia came to him one final time. She gave him a third shell, small, wrapped in cloth. This one was never meant for you, she said. But the lines have shifted. The path changed. He unwrapped it slowly. This shell was white and smooth, with a spiral that glimmered like glass. Cold to the touch. Not memory. Not shadow. What is it? A mirror, she said. Not for the face, but for the soul. What will it show me? Only what you are. He stared at the shell for a long moment, then nodded. That evening, he stood before the dark doorway beneath the shrine. He carried all 3 shells in a small woven pouch. His hands trembled. Somewhere beyond this passage, the aswang waited. Maybe his father's memory. Maybe Meanies' soul. And whatever version of himself would walk out of that place, if he walked out at all, would never be the same. He took a breath. The sand beneath his feet stirred. From the horizon, a sound rose, like thunder, but wrong. Wet. Clicking. Winged. They were coming. All of them. He looked down at his trembling hands. Then, quietly, stepped into the dark. KB expected darkness when he passed through the shrine's hidden doorway. Instead, he found light. A strange, golden glow poured from glowing carvings on the stone walls, forming shifting symbols in a language he didn't know, yet somehow understood. They moved as he walked past, like eyes turning to watch. Like thoughts reaching out to his own. The corridor led him deeper underground, until the air became thick and ancient. The mutya shells at his waist pulsed, each with a rhythm of its own, heartbeats of memory, fear, and fate. He didn't know where he was going. Only that something wanted him here. At the end of the path was a chamber lit by blue fire. The flames floated in bowls carved from obsidian, each casting no heat, only cold. In the center stood a man, or at least, he looked like one. Tall, shrouded in robes made of papyrus and gold thread. His eyes were hidden behind a jackal's mask. At his feet rested a jackal with silver fur and ink-black eyes. KB stepped forward. The shells vibrated violently now, as though recognizing the figure. "You are late," said the masked man. His voice echoed strangely, like 3 voices layered together. One was human. One was ancient. One was not of this world. "Who are you?" KB asked, throat dry. "I am the reason your blood still moves," the man said calmly. "The one who bound your line. The one your mother feared. And the one your father fled." KB staggered. "You knew my father?" The jackal growled softly. "I was your father's master," the man said. "And his judge. As I now must be yours." 1,000 thoughts exploded in KB's mind. His father, the man who vanished before he could remember, was part of this? He failed, the man said, as though reading KB's thoughts. As his father failed before him. All cursed to repeat the cycle. All drawn to this place. All unworthy. KB's fists clenched. "I'm not them." "No," the man said. "You are something far worse." The fire dimmed suddenly. The walls began to shift. Not physically, but the carvings twisted, revealing new scenes. KB's ancestors, men and women whose eyes burned with unnatural light, battling creatures made of shadow. But slowly, their faces changed. They became like the monsters they fought. Until there was no difference. They were not protectors, the masked man said. They were containers. For what? KB whispered. The man stepped forward. For the old ones. The first aswang. The primal hunger that your family was meant to imprison. No, no, that's not. KB backed away. The man lifted his mask. Beneath it was no face, only a swirling void, like a black sun. The same energy KB had seen in the mirror of his dreams. You were not chosen to fight the curse, the voice said now from inside his head. You are the curse. The final vessel. The cage. Or the key. Suddenly, pain struck his chest like a blade. He dropped to one knee, gasping. The cracked shell at his side was glowing hot. The others tried to pull away from it, tugging at their cords. The energy inside him, whatever had been dormant, was waking up, feeding on his fear. "You are not ready," the voice said. "But you must be. For it wakes. And if you fail, there will be no Egypt left to curse." Then everything exploded in white light. When he woke, he was back in the village. But the sky was wrong, bruised purple, with cracks of red lightning. The air smelled like ash. The wind had stopped again. Something terrible had begun. He stumbled to the healer's hut, only to find it torn apart. Symbols burned into the walls. A trail of blood leading out into the desert. And standing outside, waiting, was Meanies. Only now, he didn't pretend. His eyes glowed red. His limbs too long, too thin. "You finally saw it," the creature said. "What you really are." KB didn't answer. He was too stunned to move. "Your father knew too," it continued, circling him. "That's why he ran. Not from us, but from you." "Lies," KB said hoarsely. "Truth," Meanies whispered. "We don't need to kill you. We need you to remember what you were born to be." Suddenly, a roar echoed from the hills. A second figure stepped from the shadows, a woman, cloaked in seaweed and barnacles, eyes glowing blue. The Shokoi. But this time, she did not speak to KB. She aimed her trident at him. "You've let it grow," she hissed. "I told the healer not to trust you. The aswang seed has bloomed." "I didn't choose this," KB shouted. "But you didn't resist it either," she snapped. Lightning split the sky. KB was caught between two forces now, each demanding something from him. Each seeing a different fate. Monster. Weapon. Savior. Curse. And none of them asked what he wanted. He turned and ran. Not out of fear, but out of sheer, blinding confusion. His mind spun with images, the jackal-faced god, the shells, his family's bloodline, and now, this revelation, he wasn't the fighter of the curse. He was the curse. But maybe that also meant he could end it. He hid in the ruined storage huts outside the village, pressing the shells to his skin, trying to calm his breath. One of them, the new one, the white spiral, began to hum gently. A low voice whispered from within. Not a threat. Not a command. A question. Do you wish to become the end? Or the beginning? KB looked at his reflection in the surface of the mutya. He didn't know. Not yet. But he had to choose soon. Because the sky was cracking. And the old things were nearly free. The sand was moving. It slithered like a living thing across the ground, twisting into shapes that should not exist, faces without mouths, limbs without bodies, screams without sound. KB stood at the center of it all, the cracked shells of the mutya clutched in his hand. The sky had torn open like a wound. Dark shapes circled overhead, too large to be birds, too silent to be storms. The earth trembled under each step of the aswang. Not the twisted villagers anymore, but fully transformed, winged, grotesque, eyes burning like coals swallowed whole. They were no longer hiding. And neither was he. He had come to the Black Temple. The one buried beneath sand and secrecy for centuries. Where, it was said, the gods had buried their first mistake. Meanies, no longer bothering with human form, waited there, atop the broken altar. Wings unfurled. Flesh shifting with each breath. You came, he hissed. I was afraid the truth would break you. It did, KB said, voice steady. But I'm still here. The air between them sparked. The mutya shells at KB's side glowed, white, red, and gold, singing in strange harmony. Meanies tilted his head. You still think you're the hero? I don't know what I am, KB said. But I know what I'm not. I'm not yours. With a cry, he raised the white spiral shell. The moment it caught the broken moonlight, it unleashed a pulse, a wave of force that pushed the swirling sand aside, parting the storm for a heartbeat. KB didn't understand the language he spoke next. But the shells did. They responded like memory, each word reaching back through blood and time. The ground cracked. And from the depths of the temple rose the figures of his ancestors, ghosts wrapped in smoke and regret. They stood beside him, silent, watching. They had all failed. Now he stood where they had fallen. Meanies lunged, talons outstretched. KB didn't run. He pressed the spiral shell to his heart and let it break. A scream erupted, his own, the shell's, the ancestors'. Time bent around him. He was no longer in the temple. He was back, inside the moment of the curse. He saw his great-great-grandmother pleading with a spirit of fire and ash. Saw his father binding a piece of himself into a mutya to hold the hunger back. Saw his own soul split, before he was even born, just to delay the inevitable. And now he saw the truth. The aswang were not the curse. They were the guardians. Twisted by a failed ritual long ago. Bound to protect a gate that was never meant to open. The real evil was beneath them all. Still asleep. Still dreaming. But every act of violence, every bit of fear, fed it. And the mutya? Not weapons. Keys. KB collapsed to his knees. He had been tricked. All of them had. Meanies stood over him, breathing ragged. Now you understand. There is no victory. Only release. Use the last shell. Let the gate open. Let us finally end. KB looked at the final shell, the black one. The one that had never spoken. He felt it now, whispering. Offering peace. Forgetting. An end to the pain. All he had to do was give in. Then he heard her voice. Tan na, Anak, soft. Gentle. His mother's voice. KB turned, and there she was. A vision. No, a memory. She was standing in the healer's hut, cradling him as a baby. Telling him stories of courage. Of the strength and kindness. Of the power in choosing to stay. He remembered now. She had known what he was. And she had loved him anyway. He rose, slow but certain. I won't open the gate, he said. Meanies snarled. Then you'll die. No, KB whispered. I'll seal it. He turned the black shell, not to his chest, but to the temple floor. Spoke the binding words that burned his tongue. And cast it into the cracks. The ground howled. The air pulled inward. The gate screamed. And began to close. Meanies shrieked, leaping at him, but the spirits of KB's ancestors surged forward. They held him. Not to punish. To free. Their eyes met. And for the first time, KB saw the sadness in Meanies' face. He had never been the villain. He had just given up. The sky fractured one last time, then sealed. The wind returned. The world breathed. And the silence that followed was alive. KB lay on the sand, coughing, drained. The shokoi approached, kneeling beside him. Her form had changed, less monstrous now. More human. You could have become the end, she said. You chose to begin again. He nodded, too tired to speak. She handed him something, a small, smooth stone, warm to the touch. A new shell, she said. But empty. KB held it tightly. For the first time, he felt no pull, no hunger, no curse. Only possibility. But far below, where the gate had once opened, a crack remained. And inside it, Something smiled. The desert had gone still again. Days had passed since the battle beneath the Black Temple, but KB could still feel the warmth of the binding shell in his palm, now dormant and silent. The sky had softened, the winds calmed. Even the animals, once restless, as if agitated by the stirring darkness, had returned to their quiet routines. The curse had been sealed, but not erased. And KB was no longer who he once was. He walked the edges of the village, where children had once avoided him, whispering about his strange eyes and quieter silences. Now they watched him openly, some with awe, others with fear. He didn't mind either. He didn't need to be understood anymore. He just needed to be. Amara sat beside him near the acacia tree where they used to draw in the dust as children. She still limped slightly from the night of the storm, but she had survived. Many hadn't. They think you're a spirit now, she said, not unkindly. That you died in the temple and something else came back wearing your face. KB chuckled softly. That's not entirely untrue. She turned to him. You saved us, you know. He said nothing. Because saving came with costs. He dreamt less now, but when he did, he saw Minnie's whole again. Not monstrous. Just tired. Sometimes the dreams were peaceful. Other times, they whispered warnings. The gate was sealed, but not destroyed. It never could be. And the mutya, now just a smooth stone in his pocket, remained a tether. Not a weapon. Not a key. Just a reminder of who he could become again, if the balance shifted. KB spent his days helping rebuild what had been broken. Repairing homes. Burying the dead. Planting new seeds in the dry fields. He found joy in the work. Not because it distracted him from the past, but because it honored it. One afternoon, the shadowy returned. No longer a creature of nightmares, her form had softened, her eyes now the green of river stones. You're healing, she said. So are you, he replied. She knelt beside him, offering a small vial, clear water, glowing faintly. For when the dreams return, it will help you remember what's real. He took it gently. And if I forget again? She smiled. Then you'll find your way back. You've done it before. One night, he stood alone in the desert. No fire. No wind. Just sand and sky. He opened his hand, letting the smooth shell fall to the earth. Buried it beneath his heel. He no longer needed it. What had once defined him no longer held him. He had walked through the dark. And chosen light. He thought often of his parents. Of the sacrifices they made to hold the curse at bay. Of the love they gave him, knowing the truth of what he carried. He missed them, not with pain, but with gratitude. They had done their part. Now he had done his. Maybe that's all life was. A chain of sacrifices, handed down like stories. The villagers eventually rebuilt the shrine, not to worship a god or fear a monster, but to remember a boy who was once feared, and who chose to protect them anyway. They painted it with symbols, the spiral, the broken gate, the cracked shell, and the open hand. And above it, the words, to hold darkness, and still choose light. Years later, when travelers crossed the desert, they would hear whispers of the Sandwalker, the boy who sealed a god's hunger and walked away unchanged. They'd never believe the story. But still, they'd leave offerings by the acacia tree. A shell. A coin. A flower. And the wind, when it passed through the branches, would sound like a voice. You wouldn't last a day in ancient Egypt. But he did. Final line, the curse did not end with silence, but with a choice, and he chose to stay.